Welcome to Wickedshizuku's Reviews, bringing you a southern perspective on books, movies, music, and much, much more. Stick around for a while, you just might hear something wicked. Well, hey everyone. Not feeling too hot today. Welcome to episode 6 of Wickedshizuku's Thoughts on News. So, I'm going to go ahead and get into what I have lined up. So, we shall get right to it today.
Yo, I cannot believe these shorts from Fabletics are 2 for $24. Look at the shorts I used to wear to the gym. No.
Okay, hold on. Only have 8 clips lined up for us tonight. And the last 2 are a little bit longer. I haven't seen these yet, so. Alright, we're gonna have to go. I'll have to read this one out. India's lunar rover went down a ramp from its spacecraft and drove over the moon's surface. I've got that fixed for everyone. It happened within hours of its historic touchdown near the moon's south pole. The Chandrayaan-3 rover is expected to conduct experiments over 14 days, including an analysis of mineral composition of the lunar surface. India is now only the 4th country to achieve this milestone, next to the US, the Soviet Union, and China.
Fox News alert for you right there. Donald J. Trump became the first president ever to get a mugshot after turning himself in at a Georgia County jail on election interference charges in the state of Georgia.
And our next guest says if he is elected.
Now this is just sad. It's just downright. I mean, sad.
President, he will pardon Donald Trump. GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy joins us now. Good morning, Vivek.
Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning. We've known you for years. You wrote your book. You've been, you come on our show a lot. Then we see you up on the debate stage. You decide to run for president, and you just come out so energetic, and the polls are showing that you are loved. You really just came back from behind. Tell us, what is your reaction to all of this?
So I do think we're skating on thin ice as a country right now, Ainsley, and my top goal as U.S. president is to reunite this country. I still believe that's possible. I don't think we're working with a lot of time here. If my 2 sons, who are toddlers now, if they graduate from 12th grade before we fix this, I genuinely worry we will not have a country left. That is what gives me my sense of urgency, and that is why I have been so clear, despite being a competitor to Donald Trump in this primary, I've been crystal clear that yes, I will pardon him of any federal crime of which I'm able to. And the reason why is that is a precondition for moving our nation forward. We cannot turn into a banana republic where the party in power uses police force to indict and arrest its political opponents in the middle of an election. That is not how we do it in the United States of America. And if there's one principle we should all be able to unite around, whether or not you disagree with the president, it is we the people who select the president, not the federal administrative police state. And that's why I've been so clear on this issue.
And Vivek, you mentioned you're a competitor. You and Donald Trump are both competing to be president of the United States, but you guys have a lot of the same policies. And it's like, well, why would I vote for Vivek when I can get the real McCoy if I like Donald Trump's policies?
The reality is, being the president is not just about policy. You're right. Donald Trump and I are both America First candidates. There's some small differences. I would go further with some elements of the America First agenda. Use the military on the southern border, not just build the wall. Shut down the Department of Education, not just put Betsy DeVos, a good person, on top.
Well, I don't understand why they haven't used a big military budget in order to be able to finish the construction of the wall with the engineers from 554 Brigade. I don't understand that. Because that's what they do. They build stuff.
And tell her to reform it. So in many ways, I think I am going further, but that's not the real difference. I'm from a different generation. I'm 38 years old. We are reaching young Americans as somebody who has lived the American dream as a first-generation American. I want to build a multi-ethnic working-class coalition that delivers not just a 50.1 electoral margin, but a landslide, a moral mandate. And I genuinely believe that, as I said before, we're skating on such thin ice that this has to be a landslide election. Like Reagan delivered in 1980, I think I am the single candidate on this Republican primary that can actually deliver that landslide in 2024. And that is a critical step to reunite this country. We're reaching people young and old, black and white, man and woman. It doesn't matter. The places I've gone, from the south side of Chicago to Kensington and Philadelphia, these are places where traditional Republicans don't dare go. Many Democrats don't even dare go. But to me, the America First movement means we put all Americans first. And I think that that landslide is something that I'm uniquely equipped to deliver.
Yeah, I mean, the president tried to put federal troops into those hellacious city streets, and these mayors push back. So that's what you'll be up against. You're also going to be up against Ambassador Nikki Haley. And you guys could not be more disagreeable when it comes to our role in the hot spots in the world and the places that matter most. Here's what she told us last hour about how wrong she still thinks you are.
So Bespoke Post,
Oh,
they just send you a
They want to
cool box
distract
every
me
month.
again.
This is kind of awesome.
And this thing is
When you talk about Ukraine, I understand that Americans are divided on what we should be doing with Ukraine, but Vivek was completely wrong to say that we have to choose between the border or protecting our national security. We do it all. We do it all to make sure we keep Americans safe.
So she went on there, Taiwan, stop Russia there is a message to China because they're inextricably linked.
So look, I respect Ambassador Haley and her experiences, but I respectfully disagree with her. And I think the existing foreign policy establishment has gotten it wrong for so long, they're getting it wrong here too. We are driving Russia further into China's hands.
But they
We're
invaded
seeing that in
Ukraine,
front of our own eyes.
Vivek. They invaded Ukraine. Just
Yes.
give them the 20% of the country.
Well, here's what I...
I don't want to comment on that, but, you know, one thing that I think that should be done is that all the funding just stop. Funding stop. Full stop. And then pretty much reconsolidate and see all of our inventory. We need to check that, all right? Check your inventory. And then along with the border, turn on that freaking gas line again. That would get the money and revenue coming back in. The plants need to be seen to. All of those plants that have been burned down by some sort of sabotage. Too many fires. That's for sure.
I would say, just like Nixon did not trust Mao, we still had to pull Mao Zedong out of the hands of the USSR. I don't trust Putin any more than Putin trusts us.
So do you
We
want to
shouldn't trust
take
each
his
other,
word that he'll
but we can
divorce
trust him.
himself from China?
No, I will not take his word. I will make him actually abide by an agreement with the United States with hard conditions attached to it. If they resume joint military exercises with China, there will be consequences in my deal with them. We will immediately then look at other actions that actually put Russia in a tougher spot than they are even now. Maximum pressure campaign. But what I've said is we can actually go the other direction. Reopen economic relations with Russia. Freeze the current lines of control. Make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO.
So let
but
Russia
require-
take 20% of the country. They took it. They just took it.
The reality,
and you said
the
let
reality
him
is,
have it.
what do we get in return?
Well,
The
listen,
reality is what we get in return. I'm keeping my eye on the prize, Brian. Here's the eye on the prize. The Russia-China alliance is the greatest threat the United States faces. There is not a single candidate in either party who has offered a coherent plan of how to disband that alliance. I have, and I want to use the Ukraine war as a chance to bring that up.
Well, one thing that could also be done is impress upon all of the businesses and whatnot that they need to bring their factories back to the U.S. soil. Wherein lies the problem of minimum wage and living wages. Along with tax zones and all of that good stuff.
Alliance apart. That will be the single greatest advance
we're
in U.S.
watching the
national
Russian
security
army
interests we've seen in a
deconstructed
generation.
before our eyes. We're watching the Russian army deconstructed before our eyes without any American blood. They are the aggressors, and our foreign policy did win us the Cold War,
Yes.
which I assume you know.
Yes, in the modern Cold War, Brian, the old establishment needs to wake up and see is that the USSR doesn't exist anymore, but communist China does. And unlike the USSR, we now depend on communist China for our modern way of life. If that had been a Russian spy balloon flying over half the United States, we would have shot it down in an instant and ratcheted up sanctions. But because it was a Chinese spy balloon, we're scared, so we didn't do it.
Right.
And the reality is China is bolder because they know Russia is in their camp. Russia does have the
You'll
largest
never
nuclear
set-
stockpile
you will
in the world.
never separate
Why
them,
do you want to embolden China even more and allow them to
I
take
disagree with
Taiwan?
respect.
You give
What
them
about
away?
Taiwan? You said that you were fine
Yeah.
basically with China taking Taiwan?
That's actually not what I said.
Okay, what did you
To the
say?
contrary, I'm glad we're
Clarify.
having this discussion. What I said is there isn't a single candidate in the Republican Party who's had the courage to say what I've said, which is we will defend Taiwan. Right now, the U.S. policy of strategic ambiguity doesn't allow establishment politicians to say that. The U.S. policy in both parties is a one China policy. I say move beyond that to strategic clarity. I said we will defend Taiwan, at least until we have semiconductor independence in this country,
And then let
at
them
which
take
point
in
we will
2028.
reevaluate.
And then we let them
At
take
which
it.
point we'll reevaluate.
All right.
Brian, I will remind you that the U.S. policy right now is a one China policy. Donald Trump was derided for picking up a phone call from the Taiwanese president. That's how pathetic our current policy is. I think we should be clear that we will defend Taiwan.
Believe it or not,
but
this
also make it
president-
clear to Xi Jinping.
Believe it or not, this president keeps saying
What's
we
that,
are. He's different from his State Department. Department.
Vivek, thank you very much for joining us today. We know you've had a really big week. You did a really good job. Do you have enough energy to do like 40 burpees for us right now on TV?
What's your plan to watch the game today?
I have to watch my neighbor's NFL Sunday ticket.
It's not your best plan. Do you know what it is? My plan from Verizon.
Football season is here. Get an NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube TV on us, a $449 value. Plus, get a free Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5, only on Verizon.
The House Judiciary Committee is launching an investigation into Fulton County District Attorney Bonnie Willis questioning her, quote, motivations for prosecuting former President Donald Trump. House Judiciary Chairman Republican Jim Jordan of Ohio sent a letter to Willis yesterday demanding information related to her investigation and indictment of former President Trump and his associates for their role in trying to overturn the 2020 election. Specifically, Jordan asked for information related to Willis's probe, including whether she coordinated any of her efforts with special counsel Jack Smith. He says Congress has an interest in such activity, that it falls under the committee's oversight. Also in the letter, Jordan demands Willis turn over several batches of materials, including all documents and communications.
Kind of looks like she's been having trouble sleeping, hasn't it? Look at those bags. Ooh. Not that Jim Jordan's much better, but yeah. Ooh, she's been losing some sleep over this one.
Between the Fulton County DA's office and the DOJ regarding the case and the receipt and use of federal funds. The request from Jordan is similar to the one he made of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg shortly after Bragg brought charges against Trump earlier this year. The Fulton County District Attorney's office declined to comment. And Joe, what makes this, laughable to an extent, is that we're talking about cases in which Donald Trump admits or is heard on tape to a lot of what he's accused of, whether it's Alvin Bragg or the Bonnie Willis case.
Yeah, and Michael, still I've got to say, with all the energy they use in gesturing, engaging in the politics of gesture, you wonder how they have time to legislate.
Yeah, Joe, you're a funny man. You know these fools aren't legislating. They haven't legislated, oh my gosh. They're still trying to figure out the infrastructure.
But I mean, this is all gesturing, though, Michael, though, right? This is all gesture.
Of course, Joe. Of course it is. There's not a serious member among them. They're not looking to propose to President Biden's infrastructure or inflation legislation. Republicans, rightly got on board with that and moved on. But when it comes to the politics of drama and the politics of reality TV, that's the space that a Jim Jordan is good in. That's the space. Yeah, tell me one serious hearing this man has held since he's been chair or ranking member.
The one where he had Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger. And how about those FBI whistleblowers? That one too. Need I go on?
I mean, so the reality of it is, this is the block and tackle portion of our program. Fonnie Willis has done what she should do. Jim Jordan knows damn well he's got no jurisdiction here, but most Americans don't know that. So he throws up paper and goes, you got to tell me everything you're doing, and I got to make sure.
Actually, he can, because he's head of the Judiciary Committee.
Sure, you're not spending money, and people go, oh, this is serious. Well, no, it isn't, folks. This is not serious. This is obstruction. He knows he has no interest in this case. Doesn't involve his committee. There is no oversight here. Show me in the rules of the House where it says that the chairman of the Judiciary Committee has a direct interest in the prosecution of a local state felony case. They don't have it. So let's again pull the lens back, bring the noise down, and understand what's playing out here. This is all about the Donald Trump protection racket that the GOP has stuck themselves in and now don't want to get out of. As was rightly noted, they all but two said that if the man is standing there in leg irons and an orange jumpsuit, having been convicted under the color of law for his crimes, they would still put his behind up for president of the United States. America, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
Even if he were convicted of trying to steal an election in Georgia or try to steal nuclear secrets, America's nuclear secrets.
They tell you who they are.
Hey, folks, we're going to win
Oh,
re-election.
my.
I'm going to need you by my side every step of the way.
No, Joe. Go.
Meantime, on Capitol Hill, House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan sent a letter to the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis, demanding information related to her investigation. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles is with us this morning. Ryan, good morning. What do we know?
Well, this is not a surprise by any stretch of the imagination, Jose, including the timing of this letter from the House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan to Fani Willis.
No, he's got some really bad audio going on. Really bad audio there. He's in an echoey part wherever the press are.
Willis in Fulton County. It comes on the same day that the former president, of course, is expected to turn himself over. And it is a letter requesting information about the district attorney's investigation in any way, shape, or form that would touch the federal government. So in particular, Jim Jordan is specifically interested in any communication or coordination between Willis and the special counsel's office of Jack Smith and his investigation and subsequent indictment into the former president and many of the same charges that Fani Willis is accusing Donald Trump of being guilty of. At the same time, they're asking for any sort of use of federal funds in the process of this particular investigation, and also whether or not there was any interface with the Department of Justice as well. This is almost identical to the pattern that we saw play out when Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, indicted the former president. And you can see that Jim Jordan here is trying to really, thread a very thin needle here, because Fani Willis's investigation is at the state level. It really has almost no federal jurisdiction. And so what the federal government is trying to do here in terms of the House Judiciary Committee is trying to find examples of where she is working with the federal government, either through the funding of her office or through the interactions that she may have had with the Department of Justice. We should also point out, Jose, there's nothing that says that Fani Willis can't talk to members of the Department of Justice as part of her investigation, share information, and try and to determine exactly what could help or hurt her investigation. But it's just another example of these House Republicans trying to provide cover for the former president as he is scheduled to be arrested later today in Atlanta.
Of course, I'm going to be polluted with nothing but Democrat ads now. Hurry up. Let's just throw the algorithm off now.
Joining me right now is Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn. She's a member of the Senate Judiciary, Finance, Commerce, and Veterans Affairs Committees. Senator, it's great to see you. Thanks very much for being here this morning.
To you.
Sure. Give us your reaction to all of this, Senator.
I think it is so important that we know Attorney General Garland can no longer say there is one standard of justice.
Wait,
there are clearly two standards of justice. And it does appear from what
sorry,
we have learned
folks.
that
This was 3 weeks ago. The hell? Fox News got me there. Sorry. Thought that was today.
The future of health is not a thing that tracks your heart rate night and day, that gives you the most accurate sleep.
All right.
Now, one thing
4
we
hours
need
ago.
to hear more
Ingram
about
Angle.
GOP presidential candidates is what they're going to do about the gross overreach of the Justice Department.
Okay.
So they've targeted Christians, parents, you name it. They've done it. Now, anyone who's rattling the cage or making noise about the establishment, the Biden administration perceives it as a threat. Now they're going after Elon Musk again. The DOJ is suing his company SpaceX over discriminatory practices because the company will not hire asylum seekers or refugees. Now, this isn't something
That's his
Musk has ever
prerogative.
hidden. He's been saying it for years. In fact, he said it's all because of one thing.
When are you going to hire people from other countries than the U.S.?
Unfortunately, this is not up to us. So the U.S. government regulations, well, they make getting a job in the U.S. hard as it is, just getting a job visa hard as it is. But if you're working on rocket technology, that's considered an advanced weapons technology. So even a normal work visa isn't sufficient. So I want to be clear, this is not out of some desire of SpaceX to just hire people with green cards. It's because we're not allowed to do anything else.
The government says that he's wrong, that Musk can hire asylees and refugees to work on rocket and weapons technology. I personally don't think we should be able to do that, but if they say that's the law. Now, I want you to hear something else that Musk said about this policy.
I think this is not a wise policy for for the U.S. because there's so many talented people all around the world that we would love to have work at our company, but unless they can somehow get a green card, we can't. We're legally prevented from hiring anyone.
So Musk is pretty liberal on this. He's not really with the populist camp on this type of question. But joining me now is David Sachs, a close friend and former colleague of Elon Musk. He's also a partner at Craft Ventures and co-host of the All In podcast. Now, David, setting aside the Angles' disagreement with Musk on who should be working on rocket technology, why do you think the DOJ filed this lawsuit? Is it really a principled disagreement about the statute itself or something else going on?
They want to go after Musk because of what he did with the Twitter files. Are you daft, woman? Seriously, that's why. I mean, Jesus, it's not rocket science.
Well, Laura, I think first of all, they're basically saying that SpaceX is hiring too many Americans. They believe that SpaceX should have hired fewer American citizens and green card holders and hired more refugees. But the really crazy thing about this is, as you heard in your video, it's not like Elon wanted to have that policy. What he said is that they were required to. There's a law called ITAR, which is the International Traffic in Arms Regulation Act, which controls how companies that are involved in manufacturing rockets and advanced weapons have to deal with classified information. And it was widely understood, this was the belief of the entire industry, not just SpaceX and Elon, that they could not hire basically foreign nationals, that they could only hire American citizens and green card holders. It wasn't until April of this year that the DOJ issued what they called a clarification, saying that these companies had to hire, again, refugees and asylees as considered in the category of U.S. persons. And now they're going back and they want to make it retroactive to 2008 through 2022. So pre-clarification, they want to basically say that SpaceX is liable for those 15 years before they issued this clarification.
Yeah, I want people to know what this entails, as David referenced there. Okay, the DOJ wants SpaceX to pay back pay, including interest, and all other relief available to each individual discriminated against who was actually qualified. I mean, that's got to be not an insignificant amount of money, David. And again, this seems really punitive at this point. This does not seem like a fair application of clarified statutory language.
Yeah, I mean, the remedies here are unprecedented. First of all, they want SpaceX to pay the DOJ civil penalties. But more than that, like you said, they want to go back and say that anybody who was screened out, you have to pay them lost wages for all the years since they were screened out. So it's essentially what the government is assuming is that somebody who was screened out in this way definitely would have been hired, definitely would have stayed at SpaceX for all of those years, and was entitled to all of this back pay. As we know, SpaceX has a very high bar for hiring. It's a very difficult place to get jobs. And people who can get jobs there can get jobs in lots of other places. So they're just assuming these incredibly draconian remedies that I don't think they'd be applying to any other company.
That's the kicker. I think he's being targeted for who he is, what he believes about free speech, and for, of course...
Yeah.
Phone charging slowly?
This is the fastest phone charger on the market.
There's a 90% chance your phone.
All right, just because Republicans are busy with debates, and in fact, no sooner was last night's done than they were talking about next month's debate on Fox Business. The fact of the matter is, Democrats are not nearly so busy arranging such events. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. joins us right now. He is a presidential candidate challenging the President of the United States.
Seriously, this is just me spitballing here, but I think that the best freaking troll next after doing Tucker Carlson on X, Donald Trump should skip the next debate and do a Rogan. Seriously, come on, Joe Rogan, get it done. Get it done. This would be the best troll ever of the GOP. It really would. Come on. We want people to say, "Are you not entertained?" Well, that would be pretty damn entertaining. You having Donald Trump in the hot seat.
Robert, it's always good to have you. It doesn't look, and especially when we were hearing from Cedric Richmond, the Biden-Harris campaign chief, that a debate is in the offing for you or the Democratic Party. What do you think?
Well, we're going to keep asking for a debate. I don't know whether we're going to get one. I think it's, there's so many people. We're living in an era now, Neil, where there's so many people who have lost faith in democracy. They think the system is rigged, that the economic system is rigged, that the political system is rigged. I think it's really important that we have elections in both political parties that look like real democracy, where there's retail politics, where the politicians have to actually go out and meet the American public, where they have to debate opponents, where we are distinguishing ourselves from the old Soviet Union, where the party would choose, the party pangerums and commissars would choose the candidates, and they, there was just kind of this kabuki theater of democracy rather than real retail politics. And, particularly I think it's important today because ever since the Citizens United case, politics in this country has been driven by money. So the Democratic Party already has $2 billion in its coffers. But to raise that money, it means that President Biden and high DNC officials have to spend hours every day on the phone with political donors. And they really don't have time to see what's happening on the ground in this country, where there's a level of desperation and despair like I've never seen before. And I think it's really important that very quickly our political leaders get in touch with that and understand the urgency. Last night I watched a debate, the Republican debate, and it was really surreal for me because it seemed so tone deaf. It seemed like they were throwing around kind of cliches from the Reagan era.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at people who are sitting at their kitchen table wondering about how they're going to pay their medical bills, wondering about.
Yep, I'm one of those people.
How they're going to, they're going to get the kids out of the house because nobody can afford a house anymore. How they're going to pay for food, how they're going to pay for fuel. And none of those issues was discussed. Nobody was offering policies of, here's what I'm going to do to help the declining middle class in this country.
But do you feel, Robert, that part of it is that you're kind of a problem in that environment? Not you individually, but that you're kind of like a man without a political island here. That you have many in your own party, many in your own family, who are aghast at you running for president and challenging an incumbent Democratic president. And you seem to be greeted favorably with many on the right. You've appeared on a Joe Rogan podcast. You have said you like a lot of what you've heard out of Ramaswamy. Ron DeSantis has in the past suggested you as an ideal FTA head. That there does seem to be more interest and respect for you on the Republican side than the Democratic side. What do you think?
I think if you look at the issues that I stand for, and you compare them to, for example, the issues that my father, Robert Kennedy, my uncle, John F. Kennedy, stood for, you could go down the line and check every single one of them off. You know, I'm a traditional.
This is the only thing that just kind of grates me with RFK Jr. is that he just mentions his uncle and his father too much. Yes, I understand the family tragedy. However, I'm just really turned off by it being mentioned every single interview. I really am.
Kennedy Democrat, a traditional liberal, anti-war, skeptical of the military-industrial complex. I want our financial, our economic policies to respond to the working poor, the working class in this country, rather than to the needs of Wall Street. I want press freedom, freedom of speech in this country, all the things that the environment, a clean environment, and women's right to bodily autonomy, all the issues that are traditional liberal issues are issues that I, believe in, that I'm fighting for. And incidentally, I'm getting huge response. I mean, last night I was in Richmond, and with a rally that we scheduled 24 hours before, and we were sold out, almost 500 people almost instantly. I'm getting the same thing, response everywhere I go. My polling numbers are now within shooting distance in the key early primary states of President Biden. So I'm doing well with Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and that's what I set out to do, to try to find that.
Well, no, you're quite right, and we lose sight of that, Robert. That it is a state-by-state battle. As Chris Christie was saying in another segment here, that is what matters, because we don't have a national primary. We have a series of states, of course, caucuses, and then the primaries. But having said all of that, there are people like Robert Reich, of course, who was a former Treasury Secretary under Bill Clinton, Labor Secretary, I apologize, who is worried about your emergence. He said that your candidacy saddens him, that he, referring to you, said he could have done something meaningful with his life and his name. Earlier on, he showed such promise as a staunch environmentalist. Goes on to say that
how has he not made an impact all on his own? He revealed so much in his book about the real Anthony Fauci, which is a stellar book. I recommend it. It's well written. It's also one of those Skyhorse Press publications, but I'm not too on board with the actual publishing house. But his book is well written. From what I've read of it, I've gotten about 4.5 chapters in, and it's so dense and it's really hard to read. So that's just me. It's just because I feel like I don't know. It's so overwhelming. So many books, so little time.
The candidacy that's emerged has disappointed him. And it gets back to what we were saying, or I was trying to bring up, not so eloquently, Robert, that you're this man lost between two parties. Would you ever consider a run as a third party candidate?
No, I'm a Democrat. I'm a traditional Democrat, and part of my mission here is to summon the Democratic Party back to its traditional ideals. And I don't, I'm not surprised that the people who are aligned with the DNC, people who are closely aligned with the White House, are troubled by my candidacy. I'm a threat to President Biden. And, I would love to debate Robert Reich about what he thinks the problem is with me or any other Democrat. I think the reaction to me is oftentimes those who have negative reactions to me are oftentimes reacting to the secondhand characterizations of my positions that they're hearing from MSNBC and CNN that are simply not accurate.
Yeah.
When people talk to me in person and hear my ideas and the reasons I'm running, I have a very, very high conversion rate. And I think most people are surprised to find out that, that my positions are pretty much common sense.
And they are resonating with a lot of people, and a lot of people are imitating you. And you do pack these venues, to be fair, Robert. I do know that some are trying to even copy you when it comes to even little things, like maybe physical workouts. I noticed Vivek Ramaswamy has his own workout video, a shirtless tennis scene. And I'm thinking of you with the weightlifting thing. And I'm wondering what you started here.
Russia, with the help of China, is coming for us. And it's not a conventional method like war, nuclear, or chemical attacks, or even another one of those silly things that will make us wear masks again. According to recently leaked intel from Homeland Security, this attack is a new kind of warfare that will attack our electric grid and could starve America into submission. Thankfully, a United States war hero, White House insider, and Purple Heart recipient Teddy Daniels has just released an emergency documentary.
Okay.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen Vivek without his shirt on, but
well, this is him working out with his wife. He was obviously big in working out. I know you are as well. We're kindred souls there, Robbie. I'm a workout machine myself, but enough about me. What do you make of this direction? Because you've started something, and I don't know who's next or what's next, but this is important to a lot of folks. Maybe a response to, having older guys leading each ticket for the time being.
Well, my uncle, John Kennedy, when he became president, he launched the President's Council on Physical Fitness because he believed it was important for Americans to be in shape. And today we have the highest chronic disease burden on earth. We have 64% of Americans now suffer from chronic disease, and that's one of the reasons we have the highest death rate from COVID in the world. We have only 4.2% of the global population, but we had 16% of the COVID deaths in this country. Why was that? Well, one reason is bad management, but the other reason is we have the highest chronic disease burden in the world, and the CDC itself has acknowledged that the average person who died from COVID in the United States had 3.8 chronic diseases. So they had obesity, they had diabetes, they had asthma, and others.
Right.
And so that, if we really care about public health in this country and about stopping the deaths from chronic disease, we need to start caring for ourselves. And I think it's good for our political leadership, whether it's Vivek or whoever. To try to inspire the American public to get back in shape.
Well, if you could just inspire us with something that wasn't so strenuous, like miniature golf, that came to my mind. But Robert, it's great seeing you again. Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you very much, Neil.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click. At least Neil is being fair and
the average skeptical person who's paranoid would I think it'd be a fair question to ask, knowing how Putin is, and for Snowden to live in Russia feeling safe, why would he be safe? Does Putin follow the guidance of whistleblower protection, whatever, or is he keeping him safe because Snowden is giving him information? These are very honest questions that some people are wondering. Why is Snowden safe in Russia, led by a guy like Putin?
So let me explain this. So first of all, the idea that Snowden would give information that would help another country surveil on its citizens in order to be kept out of prison, or worse, is inconsistent with everything that Snowden did in his life. When we were working with Snowden in Hong Kong, I would say the percentage chance that we assigned to the fact that at the end of that process, he was going to end up in American custody in an orange jumpsuit, and we were never going to hear from him again because he would be disappeared to a supermax prison for the next 40 years. We had a probability of 90 to 95%. That was, it was a miracle that he escaped the clutches of the American government. That happened through a series of very improbable acts. So Snowden already proved he would be willing to go to prison, give up his liberty for the rest of his life in order to make it much more difficult for states to surveil. Having shown that he's willing to go to prison to prevent surveillance, why would he then turn around weeks later and make the exact opposite calculation that I'm willing to help the Russians surveil in order to stay out of prison? That makes no sense. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when there was a time, and I know this is a long ago history, but when Snowden picked Hong Kong because it was kind of a city of resistance to him, of resistance to Chinese tyranny, but it was also a place he knew that the U.S. government would have a hard time getting us. So it was kind of he put a lot of thought into the place that he wanted us to work with him. And at the time, people were saying he was a Chinese spy because he had gone to Hong Kong. When he ended up leaving Hong Kong, his intention was to go to South America, where he was getting asylum either in Bolivia or in Ecuador. He was going to fly through Moscow on his way to Havana and then onto Latin America. And the Biden administration, or rather the Obama administration, and they boasted about this, bullied the Cubans and said, if you want a deal to get rid of that embargo, no chance if you allow Snowden safe passage through, which they had already given him. They withdrew that safe passage, and that's why he got trapped in the Moscow airport. He spent 48 days trapped in the Moscow airport in this international zone before they would let him into Moscow. And the whole time, I was certain that the U.S. would be able to offer the Russians whatever they wanted because they were desperate to get their hands on Snowden. I don't know if you remember, but they thought that he was on the plane of the Bolivian president, Evo Morales. They had a hunch when he was coming back from Russia. They forced down the plane of a sovereign president, Evo Morales, on the hunch that he had Snowden on that plane with him when he was coming back. That's how badly they wanted Snowden. So I thought, okay, they're going to offer the Russians, we have 12 Russian prisoners that you want back. We're willing to give them to you. We're willing to make this concession, that concession. I thought for sure that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. I went to Moscow the next year. I met with Snowden. I did a panel with some Russian media and Russian government officials, and I was asking everybody that, why couldn't that deal be reached? Why didn't they make a deal for Snowden? And what they told me were two things. Number one, the U.S. and the Russian political class hate each other so much going back for decades that they would rather avoid deals in their interest than make deals in their interest. But the real reason is that Putin could not give Snowden back to the U.S. It would be considered a deeply un-Russian thing to do because one of Russia's kind of national attributes is they have always been a refuge for dissidents from the West. You do something against the West, you get refuge in Russia. That's something that's crucial politically to Russians, to their sense of their identity. And there was just no way Putin politically, I know he's considered a totalitarian. He's not a totalitarian in the sense of, North Korea or Saudi Arabia. He answers to political classes. There are dissidents in Russia. There are oppositional parties. And it's just too contrary to how Russia functions and operates. Finally, Snowden wasn't traveling with the archive. He knew not to travel internationally with the archive. Not only didn't he have the archive, but the passwords that he had were scattered around the world because he wanted to avoid, even if someone tried to torture him, being able to give access to that information because he had already proven he was willing to have the worst possible outcome happen to him rather than give up information. Why are you skeptical of that?
I don't know. So for me, okay, so let's just say my daughter is 22 years old, okay? And one of my guys I've known who is 40 years old, okay, who is a full-blown playboy, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter says, Dad, he's just a friend, And I'm like, baby, I trust you.
Yeah, so. Not much else. That was just an interesting clip that I had came across. But, yeah, when it comes to Edward Snowden, I'm not too sure about how that would go because they've already made him a citizen of the Russian country, so I'm not sure exactly how that would go. Would he be considered pardon? I don't know. It's really hard to know. So, I'm going to go ahead and log off for tonight. You pretties have a good evening. Thanks for watching. See you Monday.